All right, are we ready for another episode of Real Estate Chat?
Just barely.
All right. Johnder Perez, me, Robert Eid, him.
Me.
And here's the headline: interest rate hikes drive down home sales and new listings in November. So, what are we going to be talking about today? We're going to be talking about the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board stats that have just been released, the Market Watch update, how Robert predicted within, what do you call it, within a hair, within less than 1%, the accuracy of the sales, the listings, the average price. So, needless to say, and the what else?
And the relists.
And the realist. So that's going to be saved for a future episode, though. So Robert, without saying so much about how talented he is, has been tracking very well the numbers, and for good reasons. He's going to go into his charts momentarily. Tomorrow, if you're watching this, today is Tuesday, December 6th, 2022. Tomorrow, the gift you're getting for December is the interest rate announcement. Will it be an increase? Will it be a surprise? Will they not touch it? We will find out tomorrow, but we're going to give you a couple of, our insights about that. And we're going to see if Toronto Regional Real Estate Board's headline is correct, that the interest rates are driving down home sales and are driving down new listings. Robert, I'm going to load up this chart for you, and let's start with our market analysis and your point of view of the market.
Okay, well, this is the regular year upon year upon year upon of sales. And we had the same litany of lousy for the last several months, and we got it again. 22nd best November. So we're running about 40% off the 10-year average and about 50% off a hot market. So very consistent, lousy, but very consistent. And that's all we can see on this one. Okay, so the sales, this is the distribution of, is it in the west, the north, the east, or the central? We call it 416. Where were the sales? All 4,544 of them distributed. And just look at the blue line went up. So more sold as a percentage in the city of Toronto, Metro Toronto, and faded few from here and there. So it doesn't really mean anything, because 1 month is another month's, 1 month good here is another month's bad there. So
and it kind of shows you too. I mean, these are total unit sales where the focus is going, right? And when we were looking at prices and how they were going up, you've had places in Durham that were like, Pickering, Ajax, Whitby, etc., all the way to east, that were jumping by gargantuan amounts. And you saw a little bit of settlement on that. And then on the sales side, you're looking at, the market conditions like this, where are people going to, right?
Correct. Okay, this one is thrown in because you don't really care about what the TREB price is in dollars, but this one, just because it's one that shows it where I'm tracking it, with only 1 month to go, we're projecting out to 78,609 sales for the year. And then there's our array above that. The 10-year average is 95,000, 5-year average 95,000 almost. The maximum was just like 2 years ago to 121, and the lowest number in the last 10 years was 77,426. So notwithstanding the fact we had very good first quarter, our average is going to be near the bottom of the 10-year comparison. Okay, so here we go with the prices year upon year upon year upon year. And we knew that we were getting less than a year ago. So this time it's 7.21% than November of 2021. And so this is sort of crisscrossing, and we wonder if we go to the next chart, we get a different insight. The next chart is a 2-year look. Now this is done differently in that it's what I call the school year. Starts in September, goes through to August. But what you do is you get to see the fall market all at once, and then the low point, which is December, January, and then the spring shows up. And so the low points are, different low points are shown. So this is saying that in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 months in a row, the 2-year gain is around 13%. So never mind the went up to 50%, never mind it was down to minus something. 2-year change is about 13%. So there's a certain consistency over time. Okay, now this is the old faithful of comparing the nominal, i.e. reported in that day's money, and adding on the CPI adjustment for inflation, and looking at the ironies of Every time prices go up, they raise interest rates, which kill the whole economy, knock prices down again, and then it just carries on again. So we've said that the boom of that culminated in 1989 and a big fall down and didn't get a recovery for 21 years may be our best benchmark for today, but it's too soon to tell. We have another indicator later on that will maybe help us.
And since we're on the interest rate discussion, what are you seeing tomorrow? What do you feel the Bank of Canada will do? From a non-economist point of view, of course, from our real estate point of view, what do you think they're going to do?
Okay, well, I, like everybody else, is second guessing what they're going to do based on what they didn't say and what they did say in a funny way or slightly different than what they did before. Now, in my opinion, what they did that was wrong was for too long held interest rates at too low. And they even said it's going to be low, very low for a very long time. And so people bought based on that. And they bought, they loaded up, and we have to stress test at 2% more, but they loaded up on the low rates and the promise of the low rates. And then all of a sudden it became transitory. It's only going to be for a short period of time. It's a phase in, phase out of the COVID. And now it's forever. And everybody is trying to be Paul Volcker, who was the Federal Reserve United States chairman in the 80s, who decided that what he was going to do was raise interest rates so it was higher. The interest rate was higher than inflation. That was certainly going to break the back, but it broke the back of everybody, including me and my friend and your friend and everybody, because it was just too darn high. You can't have 21% interest rates. And so they're going to keep it too high for too long. And they're trying to get up to their, whatever it is, 4.5%, 4, 5% benchmark rate as soon as they can. And then they're just going to have to decide, or planning to only have to decide, how long they will keep it there. So duration. So tomorrow they're going to hit it. It's going to be 0.5 for sure. I hope it's not 0.75. 0.75 is an awful lot. 6 points or 3% in a very short period of time is very, very, a huge percentage, and it's a big adjustment.
We shall see.
Yeah. Okay, so here's our impact on real estate based on our improvement of Robert Hogue of the Royal Bank's comparison of peaks. So our peak, we came down in a hurry, and now we're languishing around 82%. And this is not unusual. That what we're looking at as a comparison is this green and taupe chart running out for 7 years that edged along. We're faster down than that was in 89. And then it sort of just slid along as interest rates stayed up and people weren't that excited about it. And consumer confidence just didn't catch. It just slid down another 10%. And so you got the perma bear comes out with a prediction. It's sort of like this, saying, well, you got another 25% to go. But 25% from now is different than 25% from the beginning. It's probably like another 20%. So that's the worst case scenario. I say the worst case scenario here also is taking 70% off of the top, which was February at 1,033,34. And but we don't know. Will the interest rate gurus change their thinking? I doubt it. Will it not matter to people when they realize that inflation is here to stay? 4% is as good as you're ever going to get for inflation, and interest rates are going to be 6% forever, and people just get used to it? Who knows?
Time will tell. We're going to see that coming up in the spring, especially in the next couple of months. I know we're in just the midst of winter market, but ahead of the spring market, we're going to see how things are going to change starting as early as January. We'll see how the supply demand equation looks. So let's look at this.
That's an excellent point. That in January, people try to beat the spring when it's a rising market. They try and beat the spring by buying in January. In this case, I think we're going to people try and sell to beat the glut that will be.
And we're going to see, and then that's where that's where you'll see where it's going to tip. Absolutely.
So this is a guess into the future, and you can see the very same thing. We're getting big down in a hurry, languishing around. And if if prices just keep on dropping at 1% a month, 1% a month. This most recent month was 0.92. We could be at 950 in a year. And that's not unprecedented. It's around the same it was in the middle of like June, December of 2020. That's not that long ago. Doesn't sound good. If you didn't sell, if you didn't buy, it doesn't make any difference to you because it's all paper, but anything's possible. It doesn't take a lot on a consistent basis to knock a lot of equity off of the paper gains. Okay, here's my way of figuring it out. And what I figure is that in 1990, even at 13.25%, people were willing to pay $2,140 a month principal interest. If you adjust that by 193%, which is inflation adjustment for the period of time, that gets it up to 4147. $4,000 a month is a monthly payment. And if you translate that out, depending on what the interest rate is, it would mean at 7%, we'd have prices drop down to 789. Oh my. Or if it got down to 2% again, which is not like we're back right back where we were, 1.307. So when I saw that 1.307 come out, I said, well, there's your boom. There's your market max in February of 1.334. It's all based on interest rate that you could get a mortgage for about 2%. So
And
we'll watch.
we're going to watch exactly with the interest rate announcement tomorrow. That's going to have a ripple effect in the next couple of months, because you're not going to see that effect happen right away. So going into spring, you're going to see what the high, like with the interest rate announcements that are coming out in 2023, you're going to see where these interest rates and borrowing costs will peak at and how the market's going to react, because the spring market is the most active market. And we're going to see how much demand really kicks in versus how much supply. So active inventory.
How many inventory? How many houses are for sale? And inventory is the only thing that's reliable because they take a snapshot at the end of the month, and that's the number of houses that are active for sale. So we have 11.9, which is about 13% off the normal November, or 13.2 off the normal 5-year. And so we know there's not as many houses as there's ever been. So 10-15% is not that bad for November. November is the slow time. A lot of people sold early. So there's just where we are of inventory. And then the other thing that we play around with is new listings. And new listings are something that it seems like I'm the only one that's concerned about it, but we just got the chart before we came on that said that instead of my estimate of 2,300 duplicates, it was 2,292. So it was out by 8. So what it's saying is about 25% of the listings that come through as new are actually do-overs. For some reason, they decided to cancel the original listing and put it through it again, different terms, different price normally. And because of that, we're getting a wrong reading of new listings. And when you compare the number of new listings to the rate of sales in that month, you get a sales to new listing ratio, which normally determines whether you've got a buyer's market, a balanced market, or a seller's market. And we'll come to a chart later which shows the difference. So here you can see the difference in the two raw numbers and an adjusted number and where normally is. And again, 13 even to 20% below the hottest market ever. Again, a little fewer listings. That's not bad. But when you compare it to where the real number is, 36, 37%, that's why the market is there's nothing for sale. If you go looking for a house, there's nothing for sale. All there is rented houses that are all beat up, or somebody who's tried 4 times at crazy price to get a price that he's never going to obtain. And anything new that comes out, which is actually a family home and well taken care of, everybody wants that. There's 5 offers on it. So we talked about that before.
And this is an entirely separate discussion altogether, just because of the depth of how much there is to explore and look into this. So we're saving this for a separate episode. Hopefully that will be done by this week. And we're going to explore, since the realist report has come out by the Toronto Regional Real Estate Board, how does that affect sales to new listings ratio? How does that affect the overall perception of the market? Not only what you see. I mean, you're seeing one aspect of it, which is what are the published numbers showing you, but what do we see for those who actually can read into what this means?
Salesman looks at it differently, and buyers look at it differently, and sellers look at it differently. From a competitive standpoint, if you're trying to sell, it's a good time to sell because there's hardly any competition. If you're trying to buy, you're trying to get a great deal on something, but you're not going to buy something that's lousy. So here's the next chart that looks the same and even got me tricked. That the property days on the market, the number of days that the property has been on the market has gone up from regular 26 days for a property to 33 days. But if we count just the listing that does sell, never mind if they tried it before and canceled, never mind, it's just about on average 22 rather than 23. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with the market apart from people have no confidence. And the buyers are looking for bargains and the sellers are waiting for a better time.
So fair to say it's a normal, like we can define this as a normal market, not something not in the sense that, where there's low inventory, high demand, which would be abnormal. Are we reaching balance? Are we still tipping in the seller direction? Are we now in a buyer's market? What do you feel about
When we
that?
get to this other one, you're going to see the irony of it
All
being
right.
both at the same time. So
Okay.
here we go. There was inventory, which is a constant that I've been using for the last little while because of this terminate nonsense. That it's not too hot, it's not too cold. That in November there was 2.62 months of inventory, taking the rate of sales, dividing it into inventory, and that's not 4, that's not 8, that's not .4 or .6 like it was in the boom. It's just great. Just there's not enough sales, there's not enough buyers,
Yeah.
but the ratios were in line.
So, I mean, with the definition of that, I mean, you look at markets where they define buyer's market and seller's market with specific months. Would it be fair to adjust because of our current time period, or because of the elements that we're going through in this market? Should we look at it as anything slower than this, or anything with more months of inventory than this should really be defined as a buyer's market? And I know that, based on this number, we're not really heavy into a buyer's market, but should that definition change at some point? Or maybe that's a whole other
This is an
discussion.
alternate approach. Sales to new listing is an excellent way of looking at it because it's new property coming on, being absorbed. It's excellent, but it's been mucked up by this terminate and relist duplications. So since we were in a solid boom for 20 years, I switched over to inventory and it was always the same. You didn't have wild fluctuations. So here you can see the chart going back to January of 08. And so there was a terrible time. So you're way up to like 9 months of inventory when nobody wanted to do anything. Most of the time, you're stuck in there between 2 and 3, and that's where we are now. 2.6.
Yep.
Okay, so here's the new listings and net new listings. And the top line black is me subtracting the relist category from the new listing category and dividing that number into or dividing that number by sales. And I get that of the sales, 69% of them are selling, which is over seller's territory and right in line with, for the last 5 years, the last 10 years, it was 71% of listings that sold. And we know that. But if you do the where you count everything and let duplicates go in there, the standard method says that there's only 51% of them that are selling. So this is why sales to listing is no good, because the standard method says that it's just neutral, just close to buyers, and it's not.
Well, this is how, I'm not saying that they're intentionally playing with these numbers, because that wasn't the intention. And Cancel Realist as a strategy, as a sales strategy, if you will, was called upon in recent times. And of course, when they were looking at these stats and these ratios, they never considered how a number like that could be unintentionally manipulated, but affected. And so it could show two different things, and it could be reported as two different things. And so when everybody's saying buyer's market and the media amplifies that message, the actions that buyers take and their buyers agents, and then of course reflected with the sellers, is we're in a buyer's market. We have to adjust our strategy to reflect a buyer's market, right? Would that be fair to say, Robert? And because of that sentiment, then, maybe it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Maybe because of this, and this is why we're saving it to a separate episode. I'm not trying to hype it up or anything, but maybe because of this,
it depends on, you said both of them. There's two things. One is if you're actively trying to sell or actively trying to buy, you have one feeling because you're actually putting your feet on the ground and walking around the backyard. If you're a pundit or someone making commentary based on what it seems like the numbers say, then you come to a different conclusion. Except if you're a pundit and you put a thing out in the Toronto Star or some other big newspaper and say, it's a seller's market, it's a buyer's market, whatever it is, then people seem to think that that's true, and it may influence their decision to do something where if they really knew the facts, if they were one step further along in the process and actually looking, they would say, that's not the way it is. But if they're sitting at home saying, I wonder what we should do. Should we do something? Should we do nothing? That's where they're influenced by imperfect data.
And that's where they take the direction. And that's why you should listen to conversations such as the ones you hear here on Real Estate Chat, and not only on here. Like, do your research, listen and watch other channels.
There are other people yakking. Yes, true.
There are other people. Yeah. So listen to everybody, and then you decide who's making sense. And who's not really making sense. And because everybody's got some sort of an agenda, ours is transparency and education. We want you to know what's happening, and we're going to unlock what the SNLR looks like with the adjustments, with the cancel realist, with the detective work that Robert's been doing as far as figuring that part out. And we're going to share that in a later episode. Thank you for watching this episode of Real Estate Chat. If you have any questions, there you go. I forgot to, at the 3-minute, 4-minute mark, tell everybody to like and subscribe. But for those of you still watching this, like and subscribe. You are amazing. Leave your comments in the chat below. And watch more episodes of Real Estate Chat. More coming up. If you have any questions, reach out to Robert and myself. Read our blogs. Read Robert's blogs. He's got a lot more.
All those charts are on the blog now.
He's got a lot more of the pretty charts on his website, www.unclebobexplains.com. This has been another episode of Real Estate Chat. We'll see you and listen to us in the next one. Bye for now.
Very good. See you later.